Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, it's May. Gosh, can you believe it? Summer's coming up. We have a lot of fun stuff planned, a lot of traveling and all those kind of things. So hopefully you stock up on Simply Snacking. They're the people who made these podcasts possible. They have, paid the bills a little bit and helped to do the production and all that kind of stuff. So please support them, get their healthy chicken and beef products. You can put them in your carry-on bag. You can stick them in the little seat compartment in front of you on the airplane, which is what I do when I travel. And then you don't have to have the chips and crackers and all the other stuff that they're going to pass out to you. So, please support them. They believed in me when this podcast started, and I am very appreciative to all the listeners. And hopefully you're getting something of value. We're talking about relationship. We're talking about sleep. We're talking about all the other things that matter, not just what we're eating, but if you're going to be eating something, make it Simply Snacking. So thank you so much for your support and for listening. Have a great day. Hello, and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I have this studly guy that I met in Utah. We both got to speak there. It was really awesome. He gave a great talk. So I wanted to beg him to come on the podcast. So it all worked out. All the stars aligned. He had to track me down because I'm hard to get a hold of and I delete emails and I mess up stuff. So Bronson Dant, thanks for joining me. You have a new book. Yeah, and your life story is awesome too. And your talk was great because you focus on so much stuff. And so welcome. It's good to have you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm very broad in a lot of things. I don't dig too deep into this stuff because I think it just gets confusing, and keeping things simple is really what helps people the most, I think.
Yeah, it's so important,
Yeah.
But your book is the ultimate ketogenic, right? Fitness.
The ultimate ketogenic fitness book. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the one thing is that a lot of people just never, like when I first came to low carb and keto, like no one talked about exercise. They go, you could just stop eating bread and then you're going to be in great shape and everything's perfect in your life is like the end of the story. Right.
Yeah.
So tell me what tell people your story of how you got to be where you're at now and what your motivations have been and all that so that we can start talking about the science a little bit.
Gosh, how much time do we have? So my story really starts with, and I talked a little bit about this when at my talk at Salt Lake, it's really about identity and understanding that we change over time, but often the picture that we have of ourselves doesn't. And we get stuck into these loops and perceptions of the world and how things are. And we're not really being honest with ourselves in how things have changed. So, for me, I was active in high school. I was in the Army. I was in shape. I was that guy. And then in my mid-30s, I was no longer that guy. And I had kids. I had a family. I had a desk job. I was overweight. I was unhappy. I was not going anywhere. I was kind of just stuck. And it took a couple different events between my relationship, between seeing some visuals, some pictures of myself sitting on the beach looking like a beached whale, to realize, like, wait a second, this idea that I have of who I am isn't matching reality. And I need to either accept where I am or change my reality. Right. And not wanting to accept where I was, because I even then, before I was really into it, I kind of had an idea that there's no such thing as staying where you are. You're either moving forward or you're moving backward, because entropy doesn't work at zero. Like there's always a net negative or a net positive in motion. So you can't just be, you're either getting better or getting worse.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing. Just like in anything at work, if you're not happy in your position, you go, okay, I either work harder or I change my position or I figure out what I'm going to do in life. Because a lot of people sit there and complain about like they don't feel well, they're tired, they're fatigued, and it's like, okay, here's the steps to take that, and then they say, well, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
how bad is your fatigue and how bad do you feel about stuff, right?
Yep. And it was affecting my relationship. It was affecting my mood. It was affecting just everything about my life was being affected by my lack of awareness and desire to get better. So I had to make a decision, like, I can't keep going this way. I need to do something to improve my quality of life and improve my outlook for my future, right? I'm mid-30s if I keep going the way that I'm going, by the time I'm 50, I'm going to be falling apart. I'm going to be just, which I'm turning 50 in 3 weeks. Right. And that, just thinking about where I was 15 years ago to where I am now, thank God that I had this happen then and not now. You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine what my life would be like right now if I hadn't made a change.
Yeah. And you think about, you'd be on meds. I know where you'd be, right? Like all the meds and all those things. And, cause for me, meeting you, I'm looking like, okay, look, my first judgment of you, I'm like, this guy's a studly guy. He's always been fit. Yeah. I mean, okay, great. He doesn't understand what it's like, but once you go through it, I think it gives you a different perspective when you have to fix yourself first and then say, okay, now out of that, let me help other people on the same journey.
Yeah. I've been through it. I haven't been 400 pounds, but I've been, almost 300. And I've been through I need to learn how to not eat French fries. I've been through I need to learn how to be consistent at the gym and start learning how to do the right things and how to not get injured at the gym and how to recover from going off of a few months of just saying, screw it all. I can't deal with this. I'm going to eat everything I possibly can. And then how to get back on track. Like, I've been through all that stuff. So a lot of that is what goes into the book, of understanding that, before we started recording, you started talking about the pillars of health, right? The pillars of fitness and quality of life. And for me, that's mindset, fitness, and nutrition. And you can't do fitness and be optimally healthy. You can't just do nutrition and be optimally healthy. And you can't do it without having the right mindset around why you're doing it, what you're doing it for, how to do it in a way that's going to keep you progressing either. So you need all of those things to be consistent and to get the most out of it. So going through those processes and figuring that stuff out has been, it's crazy how impactful things are when you put those three things together, right? You can spend all your time on fitness and you're going to run into a wall. You can spend all your time on nutrition and eventually you're going to run into a wall. You can spend all day long on becoming self-aware and finding yourself and being mindful and setting goals and everything else. But if you don't actually implement any of the stuff at your day-to-day lifestyle routine in your fitness and nutrition to make that stuff all come together, it still isn't going to help. You're still going to run into walls. Until you put all three together and start taking action to combine those three aspects, you're just going to be stuck.
I think that's so important. Like, a lot of people, they know the science, they know the data. It's just applying it. Like, how do I know what I'm supposed to do? How do I do it? Like, what advice would you give someone walking in? They're, 450 pounds and they want to get on the road, just what kind of advice do you give that person?
Yeah. Mentally, let's talk about the mindset piece first. Mentally is, you have to understand that you can do it. It does not have to be complicated. It does not have to be something the goals that you set. Part of the definition of setting a realistic goal is it has to be attainable. So you don't go from 400 pounds to look at somebody like me who's been doing this for 10 years and say, oh, I want to be like Coach Bronson. No, you want to say, ask Coach Bronson, hey, where were you 9 years ago after you've been doing it for a year? And I can tell you, my progress after the first year was I successfully stopped having to eat French fries every time I went somewhere. That was my goal after the first year, right? I was still overweight. I was still out of shape, but I was better off because I had the mental work. My first thing was, I got to stop eating French fries because I was an addict on French fries. Like, don't even get me started on how many French fries I used to eat. But so for me, that was milestone number one, getting rid of the French fries. So it doesn't have to be something crazy. Maybe for someone just getting started, it's cutting out the diet sodas. Maybe it's cutting out processed food. Maybe it's just one thing. Maybe it's just not adding sweetener to your coffee every day. Maybe you don't change anything else. And that's the first thing that you do. And maybe it takes you 6 months to get to a point where you can drink coffee without sweetener. That's progress. So getting your head wrapped around any movement forward is better than no movement at all.
And I think that's what I see with a lot of people. Like, people go, I'm not having a success. I'm frustrated. It's like, you lost 38 pounds in 6 months, right? You lost a ton. But it's like, look back sometimes and look where you came from and realize where you're at. You may not be like Bronson right now, but give it time and I think patience is such a critical key in this stress that we put ourselves under. You go, I lost 3 pounds. Like, here's hold this. This weighs 3 pounds. And you start realizing, if you hold a 3-pound blob of fat in your hand, you go, oh my gosh, that's a lot, right? But that's where we go, it's only 3 pounds. It's so frustrating because you could drink a glass of water and gain a pound, right?
Yeah. And that's the other part of the mindset thing that I think I like to start people out with too, is explaining and trying to educate people that your weight doesn't matter. It's what your body can do. And I think that's the biggest paradigm shift that I think all of us in general, not even just people that are trying to make a change, but us as influencers and people that are in the space trying to help people improve. If we can stop, I wish to God that we could stop talking about weight loss, because the way that I look at weight loss for 99% of people out there is typing and looking at your phone while you're trying to walk down the street, right? You're looking down, you're looking at the one thing that's right in front of you, and you're going to run into somebody. You're going to walk into the street and get hit by a car. You're going to run into a light pole because you're so focused on this myopic view of what quality of life actually is, that you're not seeing all of the other ways that you can improve. Right.
Yeah. And you made that point in your talk too. It's like, okay, if you put on 10 pounds of muscle, is that a failure? You put on 10 pounds, right? But that's muscle mass. And you look at your metabolic rate and you look at how you're going to feel, the insulin sensitivity. And ultimately, I think we're trying to get our body as sensitive to insulin as we can. Right. So that you can lower your insulin levels and this whole metabolic health thing. But we get so caught up in the numbers, and it's such a frustrating. And then the other frustrating thing is, we have so many influencers out there go, look, I lost 100 pounds and it was so easy. And then other people are, how come I can't lose 6? You know what I mean? And it's so frustrating, especially if you're menopausal and, you're going to have insulin fluxes and stress hormones and all these other things that affect us.
Yeah. And that's where looking at this paradigm shift of not looking at weight and looking at quality of life, right? So when we look at quality of life, we're looking at things that we're lifting our head and we're looking at the panorama of life around us. Right? All of the things that we can look at. If you do that, you're never going to stall, because, okay, my weight, whenever someone talks about stalling, 99% of the time, what they mean is I'm not losing weight anymore. Right? But they're not really stalled, because if they're gaining muscle, they're improving their metabolic performance. They're improving the hormone management. They're improving their risk of injury. They're enabling and improving their body's ability to do physical activity. So there's a lot of other things that they're doing, even though they may not be losing weight, that they're completely missing out on the fact that they're not stalling at all. They're just not losing weight. It's not
a physiologic
thing. It's not progressing.
It's physiologic change. That's why, for me, the more variables we have that we can latch onto and go, okay, look, you dropped your insulin in half. You're lifting 3 times as much as you were a month and a half ago, or whatever it is. And so I think we kind of focus on the wrong thing sometimes. I've always noticed that. As a matter of fact, one of the things that happened in the last couple of weeks, several people are following their body composition on bioimpedance. And I would love to hear your
Good. I love it.
But what I find is a lot of people, when they're losing weight at the beginning, it will look like they're losing muscle mass. The machine's saying, oh, you lost muscle mass. I'm like, you're 3 times stronger than you were when you started. And it says, what do you believe, you or the machine? Because if you lose fat within the muscle, your volume of muscle may drop, and it may look like your composition is getting worse, but it's actually getting better, and your body's making physiologic changes along those ways.
Yeah. Yeah, we see that. So we just finished a study, an 8-week study with 30 women over 40, between 40 and 55, premenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal women. And we introduced a ketogenic diet, and we did functional fitness training for the entire 8 weeks. It's really cool to see the biometrics of how that works, in that the first 2 weeks, like if you look at the 8 weeks, and this is where we're still breaking down the data and that kind of stuff, but the total of the 8 weeks, it doesn't look like there was much change initially, right? When you look at the first week to the last week, skeletal muscle mass was about the same, body fat percentage was about the same. But if you look at their body fat mass, there's a good amount of body fat mass in general that was decreased, right? And if you take the first 2 weeks out and you just look at the trends from week 3 to week 8, it was a completely different story. Because the first 2 weeks, there's things that change in your body, right? You haven't been working out before. You have inflammation. You have a new diet. Your body's adjusting to all this stuff that's new. And it takes about 2 weeks for that change to kind of settle in. You reach a homeostasis, and then you can start seeing where the numbers matter. So if we take the first 2 weeks out, we start seeing that from week 3 to week 8, the trends were consistent with increase in skeletal muscle mass, decrease in body fat mass, increase in base metabolic rate, decrease in body fat percentage. Like all this stuff was really fantastic. I love body composition scans. It tells you so much more about what's going on.
That's a huge deal. That's those kind of things are what people need to hear, because they go, I've been doing this for a week. It didn't work. I'm stopping. I'm doing something else. I'm doing it. What didn't work for me before. And it's like, really take a breath. And I've had people do that where it takes forever. Then boom, all of a sudden it starts hitting. You go, wow, this is crazy. I'm glad you didn't give up. Like, it's like you give up a week before you're going to see the results. And, it's like, it's almost like watching a bad movie. You're like, I want to see the ending and see if it's worth it or not. Right. But you give up before you see the end. That might be rewarding finally,
Yeah. There's I like to say that you're not stalled. Again, stalled is a word I don't like to use. It's just what everybody uses. You're not stuck in progress. Number one, you're probably not stuck at all because you're only looking at one thing. And if you look at other things, you're going to see improvements that you weren't aware of. Number two, if you're talking just about weight, it's 6 weeks minimum. If you've been doing something and you haven't seen something happen in 6 weeks, then we can evaluate, okay, what are you doing? And then it's not a matter of this isn't working for me. This is another mindset thing. 90% of the time when you're stalled or you're stuck in your progress, are you doing what you need to do? Are you following the plan? Are you being consistent? Are you adhering to what you said you're going to do? Are you sourcing your things properly? Are you working out hard enough? Are you recovering with enough consistency? Like there's a lot of things that go into it, and it's not just what you're eating and how much you weigh.
Yeah. And the mindset, like you're saying, stress levels, mindset, sleep, all these other things that no one talks about, and I raised a couple of these issues in my talk, as you did. And it's funny how I had someone tell me, like, this isn't scientific. I'm like, there's a ton of data and we have clinical experience. And I'm telling you, if you get sleep, I mean, just because you haven't looked at this stuff doesn't mean it's not there. And when you start seeing it and you experience, I've seen people cut their stress levels down and boom, they lose weight, even though their diet's not perfect, or they improve their sleep and their exercise. Like, and I think you might have been the one to say that. I think we talked about it. It's like, if you have to prioritize sleep versus getting your exercise, like prioritize the sleep, because that's where a lot of the magic's happening physiologically. And most of us, myself included, I looked at this week, I'm like, oh, I've been averaging like 6 hours of sleep this week because I've had crazy schedule. And you go, okay, I got to fix that problem.
Yeah, sleep is super important because it's the longest period of time every single day where all of the systems in your body are focused on nothing but growth and repair. Right? Throughout the day, you're back and forth, anabolic, catabolic, parasympathetic, sympathetic. When you're sleeping, you are parasympathetic, you are anabolic, and that is the highest time. Testosterone's higher, IGF-1 is higher, HGH is higher. Like everything that's in your body that's about chronic stress, cortisol, insulin, all that stuff is lower. So, I mean, I don't know how anybody could say there's no science to show that getting more sleep doesn't reduce stress, because that's
so if you're sleeping, if you're listening and you're sleeping 3 hours a night, don't blame your trainer, don't blame everyone else. You got to look. And plus, sleep deprivation, we know, increases stress hormones, increases hunger, satiety goes down, all these other things happen. So, getting sleep and watching, and I've always seen it as a cycle. I see people, they're doing great, then life stress hits and boom, they're stress eating, they can't sleep. It turns into this whole disastrous nightmare. And say, okay, what can we do to calm this down? Do you have to do volunteer work 80 hours a week on top of your regular job? What can we do? Because I've had a lot of people, I'll just, as an example, I have women who retire, they're doing great. And then all of a sudden they say, okay, now I'm watching the grandkids 6 days a week. I'm doing this, and they're stressed out again. And then they go back, they were doing great. And then all of a sudden they're struggling again. Plus the grandkids are eating macaroni and cheese. Like, oh, I'll have a taste of that. I'll try this. You're not going to eat that cookie, kid. I'll eat it. And then they backslide. And it's such a hard thing. And then the stress gets worse. And then frustration comes in, and, figuring that out.
And that's a good segue into the importance of the fitness aspect, right? Because I talk about this on my talk too. And we talked a little bit about, nutrition helps manage internal stress, reduce inflammation, chronic stress, and the things that our body's trying to deal with biologically and chemically. And then exercise helps us manage external stress. So external stress, the things that we have to deal with every day mentally, can manifest physically. So if I have to, even if I sit at a desk all day long and I'm not doing much physical, but I'm mentally working on things, I've got people emailing me, I've got deadlines to meet, I've got all these things to do, and I'm torn in all these different directions, that's a physiological response is going to drain my body. So exercise helps prepare and build and helps you manage the effects of that. So I like to say all the time, muscle solves a lot of problems. The more muscle you have, the better energy management you have, the better hormone management you have, and the better stress management you have. So it's just, it all kind of goes together. It's a big circle, right?
And it ties into what we're saying too, because if our goal is to keep our insulin as low as we can to be as metabolically healthy, the more muscle mass you have, the lower your insulin goes, right?
Yep.
So all these things kind of, because Ben Bakikio, who's a friend of mine, and Ben Bickman, another friend, Ben Bickman saying keep your insulin as low as possible. Ben Bakikio saying put your muscle mass as high as you can. But they're saying the same thing. It's like, hey, lower the insulin, get enough sleep, don't be stressed out. And you make that good point. A lot of people, I'll tell them, I'll look at them and talk to them about their life, and they'll go, I'm not stressed. I handle stress well. I go, you're working 18-hour days. How much time are you spending with your kids? How much are you doing? And you start talking to them, they realize, oh yeah, I'm missing out on a lot. I haven't talked to my friend in 2 years. And I got, and they start reassessing things. And I think a lot of people, busy people, will say, I don't have time for exercise. That's the first thing. I don't have time for that. So what am I going to do? Right. So how do you attack that with someone?
Yeah. So everything you think you don't have time for is actually something you need to make time for. I do the same thing with excuses. Any excuse that someone can come up with why they shouldn't or can't do something, they're actually telling you why they need to. So if you're busy, I've been doing this for over 12 years. Not a single professional person who's got a job, a business, a family, works that, 8 to 10, 12, sometimes more hours a day, right? All these busy people, the ones that are most productive and have the best quality of life, work-life balance, even if they work a lot of hours, they manage to fit stuff in, are the ones who prioritize their fitness. Because it does a couple of things. It gets you in a mindset of, I'm doing something for myself. For many of them, it's the only time of day that they're alone. The only time of day that they're alone is when they can take 30 minutes, 3 days a week, 45 minutes, 2 or 3 days a week, whatever time that is each week. It might be their only alone time. So it's the only time they have to sit back, focus on themselves, do something that's physically challenging, because we know that there's a whole hormonal thing about doing something challenging, finishing it, accomplishing it, building on success, not even just mentally, but physiologically. And then it gives them time to think through things, prioritize. I don't know how many times I'm working out and I have just brainstorms of stuff, right? Oh my God, this is a way I can be more efficient, or this is something I can throw in here, or whatever. So the alone time, the focus on me time, is essential. And then it also builds a habit of making yourself better at time management. So no, you can't, nobody I know that's been successful doesn't have some level of physical activity that they've scheduled, they've prioritized, they make sure that it fits. And a lot of times they schedule their day around their physical activity, as opposed to, I'm going to try to fit my fitness in. It's, look, this is happening, everything else needs to fit around it. And those are the people I've seen that are most successul.
Yeah, we're saying, hey, I'll set up my treadmill in front of the TV if I have to watch this news show or whatever.
Whatever they need to do.
Like, they figure it out. And so the ones who figure it out. The other ones, it's just hard. It's just a hard thing because, and part of it, and I've always thought this too, is like, when I work out in the morning, I feel great. My energy is great all day. When I don't, I'm like sluggish and tired. I'm like, dang it, I should have worked out this morning.
Yeah,
but I was lazy when to hang out with my wife, right? So, I think there's all those kind of things of figuring out how, like, we all know our weaknesses. I know for a fact, if I go home first to change to go to the gym, I'm probably not going to end up going. I get home and someone says, oh, we haven't seen each other. You want to stop and have dinner? Okay, we'll have dinner. Then I'll go to the gym. Oh, it's too late. I'll go tomorrow. And then the more times you do that, the more you screw it up. But if you go, okay, I'm getting up first thing in the morning. Everyone else is sleeping. I'm not missing family time. I'm there, or at lunchtime, or right after work, whatever it is, whatever works for people. But I think once we start making that a habit, you just get used to it and you do it, rather than saying, well, maybe I'll fit it in if I can. It's not a priority. It's like, if you were sick, you'd be making your appointment to go see your dentist. If your tooth's falling out, you go, okay, I'm going to break what I got. I'm going to make this happen because I can't walk around with my tooth missing all day, right?
Well, that's the thing, right? Being honest with yourself and saying, I want to do this, but how bad do I really want to do it? A lot of times when I'm talking to people and there's that, well, I just can't get it in. How bad do you really want to get it in? So it goes back to, why are you doing this, and what are you trying to accomplish? If you're just doing it because you think you should, because your doctor said you should, because your wife said you had a belly, who knows, whatever that is. If you're not in touch with something that's viscerally connected to your emotions and to your drive and desire to improve, or whatever that is, everyone's different, then you're not going to make it a priority. So everything that we decide to do is based on some level of prioritization. So if you haven't decided to do fitness, it's because it doesn't mean that much to you right now. And you have to, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just where you are. You have to be honest with yourself. Like, okay, I'm not doing fitness because I don't really want to. Okay, now where do you go from there? That's the question.
And this responsibility thing too, because, you know, a lot of times, like you're talking about excuses all the time, says, well, I was doing so great, but my darn husband, he always brings home cookies, right? And there's if they're there, I have to eat them. It's like, why do you have to eat them? He brings them home. Is he force giving you? Like, what's happening there, right? And so there's a lot of that I see. It's like, I would work out, but my husband wants to spend time with me. It's like, well, right, let's figure that out. Like, can you and your husband go on a walk together and spend time together, right? Can you do something active? And so it's kind of figuring those things out. And the couples who do, and what I love is when I have the husband and wife doing it together. As a matter of fact, I have a guy who's been floundering, and now his wife says, I'm coming in too as a patient. So it's like, oh, good. So like, let's work on this. Let's educate you. Let's all work together. And when you have the husband and wife on the same page, they'll kill it. They kill it together, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I like to compare it to people that go to church, or just your job, right? There are certain things that we do every day. Nobody has to get up in the morning, or whatever your morning routine is, or your evening routine. Some people take a shower in the evening. Some people do it in the morning. Like, you don't have to get motivated to go take a shower. It's just something you do. It's part of what your lifestyle and your routine is. You don't have to, like, no one has to convince you to go to church every Sunday. If you're going to church, it's because it's something that you believe you need to do. It's something that you have a connection to. It's part of who you are. So going back to what I was talking about at the beginning with identity, right? If you build an identity around the lifestyle and the person that you want to be, and that includes fitness and good nutrition and keeping a healthy mindset, then those things become easier to implement in your life, because now you're working towards becoming the person you want to be. You're not just doing actions to fulfill some random amorphous need.
Yeah, and that's an important point, because we also take on the characteristics of the people we surround ourselves with, right? So if someone's,
absolutely,
if your friends cuss all the time, then it's just a natural. Then you're in another setting. You're like, I can't talk like that here. And you start realizing, like, or if your friends say, hey, let's go out to lunch every day. And it's like, okay, how about go for a walk at lunchtime and let's go do it. And so people can build that community around them of people who say, yeah, I want to be better. How do we get better? You know, like, I have a teacher, she got 3 of the teachers, they go for walks at lunchtime instead of eating or sitting around eating all lunch hour, and they'll talk about life. And she goes, oh, when we come back, we're so much more productive. We don't have that food coma at the end of the day, and we're exhausted trying to get through. And so I think once you start realizing, and that's why I like people who journal too, because you can realize, I felt really good when I was on track. I felt really great. I was positive. Now look how negative I am in my writing, and they could go back and see it, and it's there.
Yeah. Journaling is fantastic. And the community aspect is huge as well. I think it's one of the reasons I love going to conferences. I think I've missed this whole past couple, years where there haven't been conferences and things, and being able to go out and hang around people and meet. I wish there were more local things on a regular basis. It's something that's kind of on my list to try to say, hey, we need to get some local events and get some people together. But yeah, the power in knowing that you're not alone, and knowing that there are other people that you can lean on who are there to help support you, and help you through the tough times, is huge. It's absolutely huge.
That's a huge point. And what I've noticed, and what troubles me the most is, I do Zoom meetings every other week with my patients. And then on the other weeks, we go for a walk. And it's always the people who need it the most who don't show up.
Yeah.
The people who are getting it are there because they're on track and they're good. But it's the people who are saying, like, at church, like, if you're struggling, you go, I'm not going to church. I don't want to feel bad about myself. Right. Yeah. But once you go and you get in that community, you start getting back on track again. You have encouragement. Someone calls you out when you're doing the wrong stuff. And it's the same thing in the community where, see, you're struggling with eating after you get home from work. There's 30 people that can help you. They know. Right. What did you do, Tom? Tell me your story. And all those kind of things. And it's that community we miss. But, and I think especially during COVID, everyone lost their community, and they're sitting at home going, okay, what do I do? What's in the fridge? Right.
Yep. Yeah. the power of, we said it in the Army all the time, right? The concept of family and brotherhood comes from going through struggles together. So if you're doing it by yourself, it's just that much harder to get through things, to identify. Because again, I like what you're saying, that, you know, there's 30 other people here who have been through something, and they've all solved it different ways. So if you don't expose yourself to that, then you've got one way that you know about to fix, and that way didn't work for you because you tried it. Now what do you do? Right? So go talk to somebody, spend some time with other people, right? If you want to, what's the word I'm looking for? If you want to live a certain way, if you want to have an identity and live within a reality that is different than where you're at now, you need to hang around people who are living that reality, who have been there. So the more you can expose yourself to communities where there are people going through that change and who have been there and are willing to help, the better it is.
Yeah, and I love your saying, look, let's not overcomplicate it. What can you do? What can we do to start? What's acceptable for you to start with? And then all of a sudden people start, hey, guess what? I didn't have, like, one of my patients said, oh my gosh, I was around a bunch of donuts. I didn't have one. And they were so happy for themselves. Like, how did that feel? Like, with like being able to not have one and you didn't really want it. And they're like, yeah, it was crazy. I was like surprised by that, you know, because before I would just eat 3 of them and I pick my 3 favorite ones and I take them to my desk and have them, right? They change their identity and what they desire now.
And that's a huge part. And so in exercise science, we have the concept of progressive overload, which is basically, if you want to make an adaptation to your body to make it be able to do more of something, you have to do more of something to make that happen, right? It's really kind of like, what? Like, if I want to do more, I have to do more. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So, but the thing is, there's no quantity specified in that theory, in that principle. The principle of progressive overload is just more. So that can be 1% more, that could be 500% more. So it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot. Anything that's a little bit more than you're doing now, whether it's from a physical activity perspective, I'm going to walk 1.5 miles instead of just 1 mile, or I'm going to walk 1 mile every day. And today, instead of just walking, I'm going to carry some books in my arms to add some weight to what I'm doing, whatever it may be. It could just be something as simple as, like you said earlier, you know, not putting that creamer or that sweetener in my coffee. That's one little thing that you can do that's going to move you forward more than you've been doing.
Yeah, or if you have to go to the opposite of take the elevator, go off, walk. If it's 3 flights or less, I'll take the stairs just to start with, and then maybe I'll do 4 next time, and then, you know, those kind of things. As a matter of fact, one of my patients, I love you're talking about this. One of my patients, very severe COPD, came to my office, and from the front desk is probably 30 yards from the front desk to my exam room. He walks back and he's bent over on the table trying to catch his breath, exhausted. I go, hey man, look, you're gonna have to go on oxygen. You cannot live like this. He goes, doc, give me 2 months. Give me 2 months. And I'm like, okay, man, but you're pretty fragile. And he wasn't doing any extras. The next time I see him, he comes in, spry down the hallway, jumps up on the table and looks at me like, I'm like, what happened? What happened to you? He goes, doc, I started walking. He said, I walked from one bench to the next. The first day, he said, I sat there and rested and sweated. And he goes, now I'm walking like 4 miles a day. And I was like,
that's awesome.
Wow. But it took him over those 2.5 months or whatever it was. I was like, wow. But his cardiac reserve, everything got better. His mood, his energy, he lost weight. He goes, oh my gosh, I feel so great. I should have been doing this my whole life. And you realize, okay, great. And, you know, all these people though, with back pain and joint pains and, you know, headaches and migraines, and you see them get better, and it's just so rewarding.
It is,
you know,
it really is. Yeah. Yeah.
And and that's a surprising thing is the especially within the low carb community, you know, I remember like 3 years ago when I first started looking at this, everyone said, oh, exercise doesn't matter. All the studies on exercise says it doesn't help with weight loss. It's like, well, what are you combining it with? Right. And all those studies were not done on a low carb diet and, you know, lifestyle change and all those things. When you combine these things is when it becomes powerful. Right.
Yeah. Because, well, again, because, you know, and I'll say this, unless something major happens in my life, I'm going to say this till the day I die, is your weight doesn't mean squat. Right. It's the function of your body, and exercise isn't designed to help you lose weight. It's designed to improve the function of your body. Excess body fat is a symptom of a underperforming or inefficiently performing metabolism. Your body's not working the way it's designed to do, whether that's because there are things that you have done nutritionally to muck up the works. And then there's things that are just your body's trying to do a lot of extra stuff. So it just starts messing things up. The side effects, and that's what most of it is, right? The side effects of poor nutrition. But then there are things that we can do physically to improve the function. Like, we compare it to a car. If I talk about this a lot because I love the car analogy. If I've been putting the wrong fuel in my car for years, right, the car is going to function like crap. It's not going to do what it needs to do, right? Let's say I got a sports car and I got E85 system in there, right? It's not something you can just get off of any street pump. It needs special fuel. Or it's just a high performing car and I need to run, the highest octane I can get. And I've been putting the lowest octane I can get because that's all I can afford, whatever analogy you want to use. If I take that car to the shop and I ask the guy, the mechanic to fix my car and he just puts the right fuel in there, right? The car's going to run fantastic, but I didn't fix the car. There's nothing that was done to the car. I just started putting the right stuff in it. From there, if I want the car to actually perform as well as it could, I need to make sure I have good brakes. I need to get good tires. I need to get my transmission tuned. I need the transmission tuned. I need to, get good spark plugs and make sure my belts are good and do all of these things to make sure the car is performing well. And that's the fitness side. So nutrition and fitness go together when we talk about metabolic function, when we talk about quality of life. If you do those things, then the fat will take care of itself because the root cause of why you have excess body fat is taken care of. When we focus on the symptom, we'll always be focused on the symptom. I could focus on fat loss for the rest of my life and never fix my metabolism. And I can focus on fat loss and I could do it 18 million different ways, right? I can do caloric deficit. I can do IFYM. I could do vegan. I could do paleo. I could do Whole30. I could name, you could go off, I could do a freaking cabbage soup fast, right? Like there's how many different ways can you lose weight? None of them address the issue of metabolic function. And that's why I like the ketogenic diet, is because when you focus on protein, when you focus on getting adequate fuel, right? Adequate fuel, not shoving fat in your face. That's a whole nother discussion. Then you're going to fix the metabolic issues that cause the extra weight.
Yeah, I think that's a really critical point because a lot of people have done liquid diets for it. So they go, when's the last time you were successful? I lost 80 pounds doing this liquid diet. Really? How long did you keep it off for? About 2 months. Like, is that successful?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You lost it in 3 months and you gain it back in 2. Like, where's the success in that? Like, if you can sustain it, even if you lost 40 pounds and sustain it, we're going to be better off than losing 100 pounds and getting it all back plus another 20 on top of it.
Exactly.
Because you're losing
those 40 pounds
mass.
Aren't going to mess you up, right? And doing it the right way. This is the other thing too, is when I was being actually kind of kind when I said there's a million different ways to lose weight and none of them address your metabolic performance. But if I'm being honest and think about it for a second, most of those pretty much every way to lose weight that's based on just managing calories, work more, eat less, doesn't just not improve metabolic performance, but in many ways it harms it, right? Many people that do traditional weight loss programs end up with hormone imbalances. And then there's the mental aspect of how they view food.
Plus, you've lost muscle mass too in the process, and that's even the worst thing you could possibly do.
And that's all. That's all part of that. Yeah. In many cases, the traditional methods of weight loss are actually detrimental to your health, not supporting it.
So when you have someone coming in, one other question before I get to that one. I don't know if you looked at this data yet, but during these 8 weeks that you're monitoring people, have you looked at the metabolic rate to see how that changes with changing diet and exercise? Increased.
All up.
Yeah, all up. See, that is one you say, hey, your metabolic rate is down. If you're running on the wrong fuel, it's not going to be efficient. So that's a huge point because a lot of people are saying they're plateauing, but if you're adding muscle mass and taking off visceral fat, that weight is a totally different machine. Like you're putting more spark plugs in your car.
Yeah, that was one of the main reasons I wanted to do the challenge, because I wanted to show definitively, I wanted to show with no question that weight loss does not have to mean loss of metabolic function. Right?
Unless you're starving yourself and losing muscle mass.
Unless you're starving yourself and losing muscle, right? And not getting the nutrients that you need. So I had 30 women who lost weight they lost fat, they didn't lose muscle, and their BMR increased. Right?
Nah.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Like, yeah, that's
your
awesome.
Metabolic performance got better while you're losing weight. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, that's a huge deal, and that's how you're going to keep it off more so than just doing something crazy, crash and lose 40 pounds in a week, right? That type of thing.
Exactly.
So when you're looking at especially in your study, did you use a specific type of exercise, like a zone 2 training versus resistance training versus
functional fitness training? So combination of, like I had in my talk, there's 20 aspects to fitness that I like to employ in my program. So there's 7 essential movements, there's 10 components of fitness, and then there's 3 metabolic pathways on how our body processes fuel for different activities. So combination of all of those. So varied movement, high intensity, low intensity, short workouts, long workouts, strength workouts, endurance workout. Like, it's a combination of things week to week. So try to keep things varied, interesting, and just give people exposure to and stimulation in all of the different ways that our bodies function. Right. I'm a firm believer that if you're doing one thing, you're leaving a bunch of other things out. Right. So in all, when we look at the big picture of fitness, there are 20 different components that go into developing optimal fitness and physical ability. And if you're only training cardio, if you're only training strength, if you're only training this or that, you're missing out on so many aspects of what our bodies do and how we function, and just leaving a lot on the table.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing because, all of us, you want to be able to get up off the ground, right? You want to be able to put the groceries away. You want to be able to lift up and stretch. And so a lot of your exercises are for functionality, like that you can bend over and pick up something off the ground without throwing your back out and hurting your hips and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So making people more, activities of daily living is what we'd say. It's being able to do these things and have strength at doing it.
Yeah, and have strength, and really it's about confidence in doing it and the independence to do it without help. So yeah, we had some ladies who, they looked at the program at first and were like, there's no freaking way I can do this stuff, right? I can't do that. I can't even get on the floor right now. And after 8 weeks, they're like, I'm up and down on the floor like it's no big deal, right? So talking to people and trying to meet people where they are is the biggest thing, and understanding that, again, that progressive overload concept and that principle of just do a little bit more. I like to tell people all the time, if you have a hard time doing a movement or an activity, then you need to do it more. Right? If you have a hard time getting up and down off the floor, then you need to practice getting up and down off the floor. Don't avoid it, because you'll never get better at it. Right? Find a way to make it as easy as possible for you right now. If you need to get a chair and lean on a chair and go to your knees and sit on your butt and then sit back, whatever, and then you need someone to help you pull up and get up off the floor, that's fine. Do that until you don't need the chair. Do that until you don't need someone to help you, and then start doing it and make it a little bit. It's going to get easier, but you have to do it more. So if the couple of things that a lot of people have issues doing as they're overweight or not in shape is getting up and down off the floor and walking up and down stairs. Those are the 2 big things. And I tell people all the time, if you want to get better at those things, you need to do them more. It's really simple.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. There was a study, you may know the study. I can't remember who did the study, but it was in an emergency room, and they were looking at if people are going to end up dying or surviving their hospital stay. And one of the biggest indicators, if you can stand up from a chair without using your arms, if you have to rock back and forth to get up, you're going to do worse. And if someone has to physically grab you out of the chair and move you to another chair, probably not going to make it. Like, I think it was a 6% chance of survival if you were in that condition. So
yeah, there's
these are
that
important
one.
things.
There's that one. And then there's also a whole bunch of different ones that I found when I was writing my book, about the amount of muscle mass. So the level of sarcopenia that people had, as their level of sarcopenia, as the reduction in lean mass got higher, right? How can I say this?
As they had less muscle mass.
As they had less muscle mass, their longevity in the hospital decreased as well. Right? The more people that had the least muscle died the most.
And that's a huge deal. And that's where
right?
people, it's not just about looking good in your bikini. It's really about, this is real. This is
Yeah.
real physiologic changes that help you. So it's a huge deal, because a lot of people, and they're seniors and they're starving themselves and they're losing muscle mass. They might be losing weight, but they're losing muscle mass, which is putting them at an increased risk of mortality, of dying.
Yeah. Mortality goes through the roof the less muscle you have. Absolutely.
So what else is in your book we need to know about, man?
Good Lord. There's a bunch of
Since mine's
stuff.
in the mail somewhere. I'm waiting
Yeah,
for it to get
there's
here
a bunch of
patiently.
stuff. The mindset stuff we talk about, setting goals, understanding what goals are and how to set them, understanding your why. I think starting with your why is a huge thing. A lot of people come in the door and talk about, I want to lose weight. But that wanting to lose weight is not something that I love the term visceral. Okay. If you're not, if you can talk to somebody and have a conversation with them about why you're on this journey, and you don't get pissed off, sad, angry, upset, that there's not some emotion that just comes in from here and just starts coming out of you when you're talking, then it's not strong enough to get you through the times where you want those French fries, or you want that ice cream, or you want that cake. Right? You got to have something that you're connected to. So there's a worksheet and there's a process in there about how to find out what that is and dig into it. You got to be honest with yourself, and you got to take some time and really think through what your motivations are. There's some goal setting tips in there. There's a lot of stuff about understanding that your age doesn't matter. You can start anytime. My mom started when she was 60. She's been my longest term client. My mom started when she was 60. She's got her story in there about how she started 8 years ago. She turned 68 this year. She's going strong. And so there's a lot of mindset stuff in there. Then there's the fitness stuff. We talk about what fitness is, why it's important, and then how it ties into nutrition. And then there's a bunch of nutrition stuff in there as well. And then I end the book with two things. One is some myth busting, explaining a little bit about things like why we don't want to chase ketones, why gluconeogenesis is actually a good thing, not something we need to avoid. Things like that. And then there's some testimonies and stories of people that have been following the methodologies in the book and how things are going for them. So there's a lot of a broad range of things in there. But I think I've been coaching for 10 years, and this is all basically stuff that over the past 10 years kind of put together, kind of say, look, this is a guide that hopefully is an easy to understand kind of mid-tier. There's some science and there's a lot of high level concepts, and kind of bring those together into something that people can say, oh, that's what this means. That's how I can do it. Right. Because we get a lot of doctors and scientists and researchers in this space who are talking about all this stuff. It's like, okay, that's great information to know, but now what do I go do? And this is I want this to be kind of like, here's how you do it. Here's how you.
That's so important. That's so important. The practical application, because I could throw the science at you all day, and then you're like, okay, I have no idea what he said. I talked for 2 hours about something, but it was all big words, and I don't understand what you're saying. So being able to, like someone like Jason Fung, who explains it, you go, oh, it's like what you're saying about the car. Here's how your car runs. And then you go, oh yeah, it's like the car. Okay, I get it. Right. I'll talk about the train, filling up the train and putting too many people on the train and getting insulin too high. And they're the pushers, people, stuff like that. We go, oh, I see that. And so people that have no education in this area at all say, I get it. I understand that. I don't want to overfill my train, right? So I don't want to throw a bunch of sugar on there and cause all these other problems. And they get it. And they can explain to other people, and they get it, right?
Right.
So you don't have to understand that, all the type 2B muscle fibers and all that stuff necessarily.
Yeah, not at all.
Right. So it gets too complicated when people go, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. And so that's a great part about. So how do people find the book? Amazon, I know, right?
Yeah, Amazon. It's the Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness Book. It looks like this. I can get that.
Oh, you're getting it blurred, man.
I'm getting it blurred. I got that background. There it is. Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness Book. Dr. Barry wrote the foreword. So if anybody knows who Dr. Barry is, I've been working with him on it a little bit. So yeah, I mean, it's on Amazon. My website, everything I do right now is Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness. So if you just type in Ultimate Ketogenic Fitness, either my website or my YouTube or the book or something's going to pop up, and you can follow all the links and the trail to something else.
Yeah, go down the rabbit hole. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of great stuff. So I have to ask you before you leave, what's life's best medicine for you? Like in life, when you go, okay, what matters? What's the important stuff? You're telling your, friends on your deathbed type stuff.
Oh, wow. That's a deep one.
It's a deep thought. No, but if you go, hey, look, guys, here's what matters. Like, here's what's important,
Yeah. Prioritize what's best for you at the time and understand that that's going to change. Right. There are times in your life, and we go through seasons. I don't know if you've ever talked about the seasons of life and how things change and prioritize, and understanding that what's working for you now may not work all the time, but you have to be self-aware enough to evaluate when that needs to change. Right. You know, we talk about the priority of fitness. There may be a time where, you know what, you really need to prioritize fitness in your life and do something to focus on that. That may change after a couple of years where, you know what, maybe I need to prioritize. I'm not going to completely abandon fitness, but I'm going to base my priorities on my family or on something financial or a business or self-development or whatever it may be. So there's phases in life, and we have to be aware of what is important to us and where we're going to focus and not get stuck in the trap of fulfilling other people's expectations. I mean, I could go, there's a rabbit hole here, but understanding that it's okay to have priorities, and what's working best for you may change over time.
And you may have to say, okay, I don't need to have 6-pack abs. I just want to get up off the floor. I want to, because we have these grandiose ideas like, well, if I can't achieve that, I'm not going to try. So it's too much. And then,
absolutely,
that's what happens. I see it that some of these coaches, like someone's 300 pounds, hasn't worked out in a year, and they put them through a boot camp and they're doing 900, like all this stuff, and they're miserable. They go, forget it. I don't need it that bad. I'm not doing this. Right. So many people give up because they make it such, the bar is so high to start. Even in low carb, I mean, there's different mentalities. Some people want to jump in the deep end and swim right away. Other people go, let me just get used to it. I'll get cold in and out on the step and make sure everything's okay. So you figure out what works for that person and then push them a little bit above where they want to be, right? For all of us.
And that's actually another thing that I would say for anybody on my deathbed is don't be afraid to ask for help. I know so many people want to avoid, look, and this is not me. Yes, I do coaching, but this is not me trying to sell coaching, because my priority right now is on content and the book and other things there and programs I have going on. But there are thousands of coaches out there. There are thousands of people out there who have been through it, who have training, who can help you improve your quality of life. If you are more concerned with not spending the money on a coach, then you are missing out on a huge opportunity, because you're going to spend the money somewhere. If you don't get the help that you need, then you don't want to spend that money on a coach. You're going to spend that money at the doctor's office. You're going to spend that money on medications. You're going to spend that money in a hospital, right? So I would highly recommend that you find someone you can connect with, you can buy into their message, that is talking about things that you feel it will impact you and help your progress, and ask them for help. If they have a fee, pay the fee, because you're going to pay it eventually, either in financial compensation for the medical profession or in physical loss of ability and independence. So just get the help. The cost, really try to get over how much it may cost for a coach. Get help if you need it.
Yeah. And also you extend that deathbed wisdom that you have to give a lot of years after that, and not being in a assisted living, and you can't be independent and all that. I see it's horrible, because you go, gosh darn it, if we would have had you 20 years ago, we'd be in a different situation.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like I said, what you've done. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm turning 50 in 2 weeks. And if I hadn't have started, like, I could not even imagine being where I am now, or being where I was then, and not having done anything to being where I am now, and being like, oh, I just got to get started. I just realized I need to do something. Now, that wouldn't stop me. I still would do something, and I still could do something. If you're 50 years old, if you're 60 years old and you haven't done anything and you're just getting started, good. Do it. Don't stop. It's more important for you. You've got less time to get things going. That doesn't mean you need to rush it. You still got time to work on things, but get started now, because every minute counts. Right. Yeah.
And that's a huge point too. And then, like, for me with my patients too, we're going to say bye for another hour, but for my patients too, it's the people who are the worst off are going to show the most benefit, right? If they stick to it and they do it. So someone who comes in who's eating healthy and they're exercising, they're not going to see the drastic results at the beginning than someone who's been drinking, a 12-pack of soda every day and like eating cookies, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to make me look like a genius, because we just make a couple little tweaks and you're going to be great. But other people say, look, I'm eating, organic foods. I'm exercising 3 days a week. I'm doing it. And it's like, okay, it's not going to be as dramatic as your friend next to you, but you're still going to see benefit, and you're starting out with a better protoplasm, but it won't be as dramatic, right?
Yep.
So
yep,
yeah, that's awesome, man. Hey, thanks so much for joining me. It's great to have you on short notice, and hopefully we'll get this out soon, and help people on their track, and buy his book. Go get it. I think it's good stuff, and there's a lot of great. I mean, your talk was really good. That's why I really wanted to have you on, to help people get the word out a little bit, and hopefully we'll get you on Low Carb MD when we can track you down again. Yeah, we can find something to talk about. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff out there, and I hope to see you at another conference again sometime this year. Yeah, hopefully. It looks like they're letting us do it again. So hey, everyone. Hey, thanks for listening. Thanks, for your support, and be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Let a couple of these things sink into your brain and say, where can we just push it a little bit? Just one more step, one more thing we can tweak a little bit. And if you have to start slow, start slow. If you want to go all in, do what works for you. And, in 10 years, we'll be better than we are now. And very few people can say that. So even though he's younger than me, this guy, I want to be like Coach Bronson when I grow up. Yeah, good stuff. Not that much younger. Hey, man, thanks for joining me. Take it easy. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.